Computer. Yes. So, Kim, my
Hello.
dear Kim, thank you so much for joining us today. And I want to just start by chatting about why I do these lives. So today is lovingly called Wednesday Q&A. So what we did, we used to get questions from our clients and we would answer those. However, since we are now in the middle of very challenging and changing times, I thought, I think I want to bring a lot more support to our valued clients and our valued friends and family members. So I've been interviewing people like yourselves on Wednesdays. Today's 6:30. It's a new time for us. I hope it's a better time for everybody else. And so, yeah, I'm really super, super happy that you have agreed to do this for us because this is going to be a really special time, I think. So thank you for that. And I think people are joining us. Hello, Renee and Deborah and Marie. Hi, Marie and Greg. Hey, guys. So yeah, we're getting some people popping on. Listen, I want to say something really quickly before we move on. If you know of anybody that is thinking about right-sizing, upsizing, downsizing, we're going to record this. It's going to be on my YouTube after, Selena Pollard. So send it over to your friends after. So this is why we are here today. So, well, first of all, let me introduce myself. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Selena Pollard Scott, but most of you know me here. I'm a professional real estate agent, and my passion, I've been doing this for over 26 years, and it comes from helping people attain their real estate goals, no matter what those may be. I want to make sure to bring you knowledge and educate you and make sure that you make the best decision for yourself. So what I don't know personally, I try to get the experts in, presenting Kim, which I will introduce shortly, to give you some information. So I think now more than ever, COVID and other hot button topics, there's been a lot of reassessment happening and scary times. So we want to help support our friends, clients, and family members through this time. So my word of the year is pivot. And the acronym I have created for pivot is persevering in very opposing times. And I think that's kind of very important right now. So without further ado, let me introduce my special guest today. This is Kim Diamond of Clutterfly, Inc. Let me tell you a little bit about Kim. She has been a successful professional organizer for 7 years. Yes, there is such a thing. She has a degree in fashion, and she has a solid foundation in design, architecture, and closets. She can even help you decide what clothes to keep and which ones never to wear again. So, which is one of the aspects of her illustrious career. However, today, I think we can benefit a lot from her accreditations as a trained professional organizer, her level 2 certificate of study in chronic disorganization, hoarding. We've all seen that show, Hoarders, and in understanding the needs of the aging, chronically disorganized client. She has also earned her designation as a certified professional organizer in chronic disorganization, CPOCD, and she is only the 8th organizer in Canada to earn this designation. Yay! And Kim is actually the current vice chair of the Toronto chapter of Professional Organizers in Canada. So welcome, Kim. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this. And before we get into like the nitty gritty, I just really want to, I love the name of your company, Clutterfly. So tell me, because I think I know why you named it that, but I don't. So tell us, why did you
Sure.
the name?
You know, it was kind of a brainwave one day when I was thinking about what to organize my business. And so I was really thinking, what is it I really do? And I help people with transformations. So whether they're moving or decluttering, there's usually some kind of a transformation from sort of caterpillar to butterfly, so to speak. And people are so much happier in the end, and you can flap your wings and fly away. But yeah, so, and it's also, the other aspect is I make the mess go away. So again, transformation.
Yeah. Wonderful. I love that. Hence clutter fly. So clutter fly away. I love it. That's great. That is fantastic. So let me see. I've obviously made some notes here. So, I know that oftentimes it's hard to discuss as it pertains to yourself and your loved ones. So we've got our email addresses here. So if you don't really want to ask questions on this live and you want to keep your information private, please, please, please feel free to reach out to Kim or myself, and we will get those questions answered for you. And now we also like to keep these lives to 30 minutes in length. So we start at 6:30. We hope to be off by 7. I have a feeling we might go a little bit longer, so please forgive us if we do that. So without, let's just jump right in now. So things to think about when preparing to downsize. So Kim, why don't you start us off here?
I think really the most important thing is don't wait until you have to do it. Start early and plan. And I can actually say that from personal experience. My parents, they're in their late 70s now, but they made their plan actually in their late 50s, early 60s about this and about where they wanted to downsize to, where they wanted to live. So they were in a suburban area. They decided, okay, condo, we want to be near things. And then it was all one level for when they couldn't do stairs. So it's all of those sort of things. And then looking at, while your health is with you. So, I'll give you the example, the elderly lady who falls and breaks her hip, goes into the hospital, can never return to her home because of stairs, has to go somewhere. Then it gets done for her.
Right. And we don't want that. Nobody wants that.
You want to make decisions about your own stuff instead of having strangers or family members or friends do it.
Right.
Very important. Start early.
Right. That makes a whole lot of sense. And the saying is, you're never as young as you were yesterday. Right?
Well, it's true.
Right.
And, a stroke can happen and affect your mobility, and suddenly, the stairs to the basement are impossible for you, or yard work.
Right. Tough. So guys, this is like a tough one that we're doing here today. Is there a question? Jacqueline, I need this. Too much clutter. Well, Jacqueline, we got you. So I just wanted to, I forgot to actually set the basis for this. So we're going to be discussing two things. We're going to be talking about people who need to downsize due to aging and or due to financial challenges. We know that we are in a time right now that's very different and may look very, very, very different in the next 6 months. So that could also be a situation. And then we also want to talk about people who are thinking about upsizing to allow for functionality at home for a work at home environment, because that's also something that seems to be on the horizon as well. So so back into you speaking about, making this plan. We're not necessarily talking about making a move. We're making a plan on what it needs to look like and sort of helping them set a plan. So what should folks do with unwanted furniture, art, and decor? Because one of the things that we know, and you're probably going to say this, so I'm sorry if I stole your thunder, is that everybody thinks that everything they have is of great value.
Yes, and that's when I'm the bearer of bad news. You may have paid $5,000 for a really great armchair or a couch or something, but the resale value on things like that is really quite low. And when you're deciding what to keep of and what to get rid of, you have to look at where I'm moving to. Do I need to scale down my furniture and get rid of the big sectional, that kind of thing? And so right now during COVID, it's a bit tough because they're not accepting furniture here in Toronto, but outside Toronto, they are now.
Right.
So there are ways, and there's ways to donate, like organizations like the Furniture Bank will take your furniture and give you a tax receipt. And sometimes that makes better mathematical sense than trying to sell it somewhere. For certain pieces that have value, there are specific companies I work with who can sell those things on consignment or a small auction. There are options, but china, crystal, all of that kind of thing, silver, if it's silver plate, it's not worth anything. And sterling silver is really based on the weight of the item, because it's made of silver. But there's usually so many things you've got to think about. So there's really, it's helpful to have a professional guide you through it, because we know how to get rid of stuff.
Right.
We can make that part easy for you.
Right. And I think what you're speaking to as well is these are people who are generally have been living in their homes for like 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And and they, you know, once you live in a place for a long time, you amass so much more than if you moved every 2 years or something like that.
Yeah. There's actually a really good book about this.
Yeah, so I want you to mention that book, because you told me about that and I thought that was really cool. So can you just touch on that, what the book is about?
There's actually a couple books, but the more current one is The Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning. I know it's really quite a title. Maybe it's a translation thing, by Margareta Magnusson, and it's actually a great book. So what it talks about as you age, and I think it starts when you're 40s or 50s, each decade it tells you, here's the kind of stuff you should start to get rid of, so that you don't leave this huge amount of stuff when you eventually go.
Right.
Because that it's a massive job,
right.
With all of this stuff that people accumulate.
Yes, over the years.
Get rid of.
Right. And I think, you know, piano is something I've recently seen, a couple of pianos in a couple of different homes. Pianos, traditional furniture, antiques, figurines, crystals. Like, what do we do with all that stuff?
Yeah. Again, I'll give you an example, is Royal Doulton figurines. They were a big collector item for people of sort of more my parents' generation. Sure. The younger generations simply don't want them. So that whole boomers and up, that group, they're unloading all of these kind of things onto the marketplace. So they're almost worthless. Like, I think these certain special ones maybe would be worth more, but you know, the average Royal Doulton figurine now is 30, 40, 50 bucks. And they may pay 200. So they are not really collectible anymore.
So what do we do with them? We literally actually
garage sale, donate. Some things can be sold online maybe, but not a lot. There's not much of a market for that anymore. And pianos too. It makes me want to cry. I've had to junk some pianos.
Really?
They're expensive to move.
Yes.
Air ride truck, you need special movers. You got to tune them. How many steps are involved in moving it? That adds to the cost. Nobody wants to do that. And you can't even give them away for free.
Right. Wow. So I think the moral of the story here is learn to play the guitar instead.
May I suggest the ukulele right behind you here?
The ukulele right there. Wow. Okay. So who knew? So yeah. So you've got to not just look at, you know, what is the cost of it? What can you possibly get from it? But also, how much is it going to cost you to actually move it? Right. Exactly. So yeah. So you had chatted earlier about a little bit about, you know, couches and stuff like that. So I guess as we're speaking about downsizing, and you were saying earlier to me, scale down your furnishings to suit your new smaller home. Right. So how would somebody even begin thinking about that?
Well, I guess if you don't know where you're moving, that's hard to do. But if you have in mind, all right, I'm living in a big 4-bedroom house, and we're going to downsize to a 2-bedroom plus den condo. Well, those spaces are entirely different.
Yes.
Entirely different. Maybe the condo has more windows. And so you can't necessarily put as much furniture up against walls if you've got these wonderful windows or bookcases, that kind of thing.
Which is usually the case. Sorry, say that again?
Don't even get me started on all the books. People like to buy books, and very expensive and costly.
Right. So
if you love your books, that's great, but just know that it costs money.
That it costs money, and they're heavy, right? And I think what I think is important to mention here, I have several times, sorry about that noise, I'm not sure if it's coming through. I have several times heard a client will come to me and say, well, you know, I really want to keep this big sectional kind of thing. I want my condo, wherever I'm moving, like, oh, this is the furniture I have. And then I have to have these gentle conversations to say, well, you know, your living room space right now is probably, you know, something like 700 square feet. And your condo living room space is probably going to be 200 to 300 square feet, right? So you have to be able to pivot and make another decision and say, okay, you know, we got to start getting rid of this, and we got to start, you know, moving into smaller type, you know, furnishings that are gonna suit the space. So so
that space, absolutely.
Right.
And the other thing is you usually need furniture that's more multifunctional when you're moving to a smaller space. So built-in storage and a bench, or you know, that kind of thing. So you're making
under a bed
furniture or tables that can expand when you need it, but generally are smaller, that kind of thing. Under bed storage, whatever.
Right, right. That's the good. And the other thing I noticed too, instead of, you know how we always have those nice, lovely console tables at the front, and they're just instead of having just the table where you put the lovely vase on, something with storage underneath, right?
Yeah,
Right.
repurpose the dresser that you love, like a tall dresser.
There
Those
you
are
go. Yeah, yeah, the tall boys. Yeah.
those
Now,
are
so what about should people keep things in a storage unit?
there's no right or wrong answer here, but what I tell people is storage is expensive.
Hmm.
But if it's something that is irreplaceable, means something to you, you know you're going to have a purpose for it later, or someone wants it, but not right now, sure, store it. But do the math. If that item is replaceable, how much would it cost to replace it, and weigh that against your storage.
So the hard question. So ask yourself the hard questions. Is it replaceable? Can you get it at a later time? Are you storing it for a specific reason? So you have to ask yourself those hard questions. It's almost like, I feel like at the end of this, we might maybe make a list of things for people to sort of think, like kind of digest this down to just think about. And I think that kind of helps the process, and it just helps people move in. And one of the things I think you and I had talked about is, even if you're downsizing 5 years from now, it's a good time to start making a plan now.
Start now. Oh yeah, absolutely. So then it's not such an overwhelming process.
Yeah.
If you do it little by little, then it's actually really great, and you can really think about it.
Right. Right.
I encourage people to take, if they're not sure about certain items and they're small, take them with you, because there's always a phase 2 with a downsize, because usually everyone takes too much.
Right. Okay.
But once you settle in and you think, okay, all right, now I can make some really solid decisions about some art, furniture, lamps, then there's usually a second round of purging.
Right. Right.
But major pieces, decide that before you even move them.
Right. Got it. Okay. Give me 1 second. Let me just look here and see if anybody has any questions. Sure. You sure? Because, okay. Last time we did this, there was a bunch of questions that were being asked and I didn't see it. So I'm hoping that I'm not missing them again. Okay. So let's talk about aging in place. And let's talk about the concept of aging in place. And you know how it relates to this time, COVID, and just the comfortable nature of it as well.
Yeah. Again, I'll use my parents as an example. So they moved to a suburban home to an urban condo in Ottawa.
Right.
And this is before any of them really had any health issues. And they thought, because this is where we're going to age in place. And they got a big 2-bedroom condo.
Mm-hmm.
And to keep in mind, like down the road, if they needed a caregiver in home, there's a room for them. And there's space for them, wide doorways and that kind of thing. They modified the bathrooms to have walk-in showers. Easily done with a condo. So everything's all on one level. There's no stairs. Yeah. So if you have to factor in, if I'm going to suddenly need a walker one day, we'll just get down the hallway.
Right. The doorways and such. Right. Okay.
Most
Got
condos
it.
are a little bit better about that.
Right.
So if they're going to that, or some houses, but you know, some are not. Like you move to an older home, they'll have you can't get through. You've got to think about that.
Right. And I think one of the things you had mentioned when we were having our brief chat the other day, and as it relates to this time, because the other reason somebody might want to age in place is because there's a little bit of fear around moving into a retirement home right now. So instead of making that plan right now, make a plan to maybe move into a condo and then have those types of things put into place for you if you need it.
Yeah, be able to age in place. And again, because my parents chose an urban thing, there's little groceries they could walk to, and LCBO, there's a hardware store, you know, everything's right there, and they can have a short walk to it.
Right.
Or if they had a caregiver, they could get to it easily. They're not far from things. So they actually thought it out really well.
Right.
And I did this all before I became a professional organizer.
Look at that. That could have been, maybe that was part of what gave you the sense of it, but that's really great. No, it's you know, I have over the last, I want to say 10 years, I have had conversations with a number of clients who they're like, okay, yeah, I'm ready to go, and then something holds them back. So and it's usually fair. I think it's usually fair of the unknown. This is why generally we find them a place first and then we sell their property. But I also know it's like where do I begin?
Exactly.
Right? Where do I begin? So this is what this is
Yeah.
about, right?
So
So yeah, there's the choices. Sorry?
there's one more thing that's really important
Yeah.
that many people have is memorabilia. And in fact, that's usually one of the hardest things for people to deal with
Mhm.
is, photo albums, my kids' artwork. Like I've worked with some families, they've saved every piece of artwork their kids have ever made, and their kids are grown and married.
So
And they
what do you tell people that do that?
So there's lots of different options, and we as professional organizers are pretty good at figuring that out. But I tell people, if there's something you really like but you can't keep it, take a picture of it. That's an easy one. Take a picture
Yeah.
of it. Or if there's some you want to frame a few pieces, because honestly, most of the time, if you offer it to your adult children, do you want this stuff? They're gonna, no.
No.
Not good for. Like,
Dad, I've got enough crap,
you
Mom.
have it. Yeah. Why
Right.
are you hanging on to that?
Right.
It's something to think about, if
Right.
it's stored in a closet for 25 years, why are you hanging on to that? And
Mhm.
that's in general a good question. If you have things in boxes that you haven't looked at in decades, then why do you have it? If
Right.
it's something you really love, find a way to incorporate it into your decor or everyday use. And I tell people that with their fine china, use it. But
Yes.
it needs to
Yeah.
be appreciate it, love it. And if not, and no one in your family wants it, send it off to have a new life somewhere else.
Right.
And
Right.
that goes for really anything in your home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Don't
For
keep
sure.
it if you don't love it or use it.
Yeah.
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 Absolutely. Yeah, do the math. Ask yourself the hard questions. Why do I want to hang on to it? Why is this hard for me to get rid of?
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's about memories and strong emotion. It can be very difficult.
Yes.
And so I often have to guide people through that decision-making process,
Yes.
very gently. I mean, it's their stuff, their
Yes.
decision,
For sure.
but where is it going to go?
Right. Right. So I recently had the pleasure of working. I'm still working with this particular client, and she is having to, pack up her parents' home, and she's struggling with things and saying, everything has a story. And I said to her, and I didn't even realize I made a difference, but I said to her, you know, they're in your heart. They're nowhere else, right?
Yeah.
So you can't get it from other things. And that somehow set her free and it gave her strength to move on. So I think that we think, but again, I think everybody's just rethinking what's important right now. Are material things really that important? Not so much anymore, right? Because we see what we've had to live without over the last little while as well. So I have okay, here we go. This was a question that from Jacqueline. Do you have tips on sentimental clutter? I feel it is the hardest clutter to get rid of. That's what we're talking about. Because I feel like I'm betraying a loved one, or I have such fond memories of times gone by.
Okay, there's sort of two parts to that. Say it's something someone gave you, and so you're keeping it out of obligation to that person who gave it to you, whether they're still living or not. Would that person want you to feel awful every time you looked at that object? No, they wouldn't.
Okay.
So if it's something you're really not going to use, it's something that's really not you, or you don't love it, let it go. That person if they decide they're going to cut you out of your life over getting rid of something like that, there's bigger issues there than that item.
Right. But what if the person, again, what if it's somebody who is no longer here and they were extremely close to you and you have a lot of memorabilia from that person? There is, what is that? What would your
So I try to work with someone to help identify, what's the one thing that really represents that person? Is there a way we can capture that digitally, or a way I'll give you an example. A friend of mine, she already had a set of wedding china. Her mother wanted to give her hers, and her grandmother had a set.
Oh, geez.
She loved her grandmother's set, but I couldn't keep it. But so she and her sister decided they're each going to take a teacup and saucer, and they have them framed in a shadow box, because that was
nice.
the prettiest part of the china set. And she has it hanging on her wall in her kitchen and looks at that and smiles and thinks, oh, that was grandma's set. I love it.
Right.
That's how you do it. You don't keep the whole set.
Right. Got it. I have the whole set of my mom's and it's in a box here. Are you speaking to me right now? What is happening right now? I literally have it in a box.
Yeah.
Not so, and it's a little box about this big, and it's actually two sets, right? Two settings, two place sets. That's what I meant to say. So it's like the cheese plate and the teacup and the, for crumpets and such. And I brought it out. The last time I brought it out was Meghan Markle's wedding, and now it's back up in the box. But there you go.
Well, at least you used it relatively recently, but some people
in this last decade,
forever,
right?
And you never look at it. So again, it's almost like someone's birthday when you start opening up these boxes. Oh, look at all these wonderful things. But again, do the math.
Yeah.
Look at what, examine the emotions behind, like, why do I want to hang on to this? Is if it's guilt, let's work on that one. It's almost like a bit of therapy doing this, and it can be very emotional.
Of course.
That's a nice thing to do, and hold and love and appreciate these things and say thank you. It's a little bit of the Marie Kondo there. I appreciate you, but you know what? It's time for you to go. And so I will let you go. Thank you for being a part of my life. Off you go.
And I think that is a reason when you said it's emotional, that's why you do it in stages. That's why you don't wait until it all comes down at once. So that's a really good takeaway. Like, I've got a few good takeaways from our meeting already. Okay. So that was the tougher stuff. So let's talk about if we're upsizing. Wait, let's see if we have any more questions. 1 second. We don't have any more questions. No, I don't. Okay. So things to think about when you are preparing to upsize. So let's just do a short list on that and expound on that. So
again, if you're going to upsize, let's use the COVID example of, okay, I need to have a better home office. If you're looking at a new home, you have to think, where is that office going to be in relation to the busy parts of your house?
Okay.
Because if you're on Zoom meetings and doing stuff and you've got the dog and there's kids running around and whatever, and we've all had our Zoom meetings like that. They'll tell you, people are good about it. But as we keep going, people are going to expect a little more professionalism. Yes. Where is that office going to be? Is it in a quiet area of the home? Right. Is the lighting and sound good? That kind of thing. Is it comfortable? Is it big enough? Right kind of storage. That said, you also have to look at, if you're upsizing, you can usually scale up your furniture. Right. If you've got small multifunctional condo stuff, well, then you can get rid of the couch and get a sectional. So again, it might be scaling up, but you want to look at your storage. You want to look at whether things are worth packing and moving to the new place. Again, large items, those are where you really make your decisions. The big, and then looking at, art. I tell people take their art because you don't know how it's going to look in the new place, and something you may love may look terrible there, or something that looked awful before may look great. So again,
just bring it all.
Yeah, for those types of things, for upsizing, like say you started your first time buyer, you're in a condo, now you're finally getting to a house. Well, you know what? You're going to need stuff for the yard.
Yes.
Stuff for gardening and snow shoveling. You might have a driveway, or you definitely have a front steps. You didn't do that in a condo. So there's new things as a homeowner you need that you didn't have before.
Yeah. So there's a lot to think of. So, and then I think we had talked about, and we talked about the idea of if upsizing means, does it necessarily have to mean moving, or maybe in your current place, you do a slight renovation and you accommodate, as you said, maybe you create that space where you can now work at home kind of thing as well.
I just was at a house, and it's the first time I've seen this, and they luckily had a very nice long backyard.
Right.
They built a shoffice. It's a shed.
Shoffice?
I thought, that's brilliant.
Is that like a she shed?
It's really great, but because during COVID, they were able to work back there in peace and quiet. Well, the ruckus was going on in the house. It was actually really good. So if you've got a great yard, maybe
take advantage.
Maybe you build a little thing at the back for It's your office.
Another great takeaway. Shoffice. Another great
I
takeaway.
love that. I thought it was
Yeah, that's a great idea, because some people just don't want to move. They love their home, and it's like, how can I make this work? How can I make this work? So that's a great idea, Kim. So I feel like we're kind of wrapping up. Do we have any questions? It's actually 7:03. Ding, 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 ding. So this is what I would like to say. So Clutterfly Inc., not just Clutterfly, Clutterfly Inc. is Kim's company. Please visit her website. I'm sure she has lots of little tidbits. And you also have podcasts on there or something too, right?
I've got some media on there. I've done some podcasts.
Okay.
And yeah, if you have any questions at all, please email me. I mean, downsizing or upsizing.
Yep.
There's a lot of detail. There's all kinds of different levels of things to think about. And I'm happy to provide you with a list of things to look at.
Great.
But start early, get that book.
So that was my takeaway. So my takeaways were start early, make a plan, say, okay, you know what, 5 years from now. And then you also got to think about how old are you going to be 5 years from now? Right? So you start there and then you start working backwards and you make a plan. So that's a takeaway. The reason you want to make the plan and you want to make it long-term is just so that you don't have all this emotional pressure, A, at once, and B, you just don't know where your health is going to be. And you don't want to leave. If God forbid something happens, you do not want to leave all of this stuff for somebody else to handle when you are just not in a position to handle. And there was one other thing I thought about is, and this was just a really little interesting tidbit. One of my professional ladies, we were having a meeting and she had just moved. Her mother passed away and her father was in their old farmhouse kind of thing. And he said, so she's telling me this story, and what he had said is he wished that he had moved to the condo when she was still alive so that they could have created memories there, and like he could sort of feel her when he was, there.
I love that.
So that was, so that's, things are scary for everybody, but people like Kim and myself are here to like really help people transition, whether it is for whatever reason, right? We all need like some special guidance in this time, right? Yeah. So I think it's a special time. I think, there's a ton of silver lining moments, but it's also a very scary time. So, Kim, thank you. A takeaway. Oh, the book. I thought the book was a great takeaway. And I think I'll try and post that. If anybody wants to know that book about, what was the name of the book? I love the name.
The Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning.
The Gentle Art.
You'll find it. It's Swedish
Death Art. I love the name of that book. It's like, whoa, run out and get that. And what else did I think? I thought was really an aha moment. I love the Shoffice. Great idea. And and I guess what we spoke about right at the top of the meeting was, ask yourself the really hard questions and understand the value that you bought something for, i.e. Royal Dalton, piano, etc., may not be so valuable now, and just have a real sort of investigation about that, right? And save yourself the angst. Right?
You don't want it to be it's a sunk cost. You've already bought the item. You've enjoyed it for years. Don't let it cost you any more money.
Yeah.
Or what I like to call emotional or health dollars as well. The stress of like, oh my goodness, what do I want to do with this stuff?
Right.
Let it go.
You'll be fine. Yeah. You lived without using it for so long.
Usually, yeah.
You're going to be all right. You're going to be all right. And you're going to have new stuff, great stuff to replace it. So amazing. Yeah. So I am really, really appreciative of your time today, Kim. I know that you have been super duper busy during this time, helping people do exactly what we just spoke about. People are deciding to leave the city and, not come back and things like this. So, you've been tasked with helping to do things like that. And I know you do a great job. And so funny story. I'm going to end with a funny story. How did I meet Kim? You think it's through real estate, don't you? Well, no, that is not how I met Kim. I had a beautiful pair of Louboutins that I never worn because they were like this high.
They're hot.
They're hot. They're hot. I couldn't even do the hottest things with them, and I put them up for sale. And who ended up being the buyer? And I go to meet her, and we get into this conversation. And that was a year, 2 years ago, 2 years ago.
2 years ago, yeah.
2 years ago. So, yeah.
Okay. Over fashion. Look at that.
There you go. There you go. That's how we women connect. So yeah, that's a funny story. So, anybody who wants to tell somebody about this video, it's recording, and we are going to be posting it on the YouTube, Facebook, and then Kim will likely repost it on her Facebook. And we just thank you so much for joining us this evening. It has been a pleasure talking to you, Kim. I hope that you've gotten a bunch of questions answered. Please feel free to privately connect with us, and we wish you well, be well, stay safe, bless. Peace.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.